Gilgo Beach Murders. Part 3, The Trial, Final Chapter. For more than a decade, the Gilgo Beach murders haunted Long Island. 10 women discarded along the shoreline, families fighting for justice, investigators chasing shadows, and a community gripped by fear. In our previous chapters, we traced the discovery of the bodies and the long years of unanswered questions. But now, everything comes to a head. In 2023, police arrested Rex Heuermann, a husband, a father, and a Manhattan architect, accusing him of being the Long Island serial killer. Tonight, in this final part, we follow the evidence inside his home, the shocking details prosecutors revealed, the defense's desperate counterattacks, and the emotional trial that brought the families face to face with the man accused of destroying their lives. This is the final chapter of the Gilgo Beach murders. For the families of the Gilgo Beach victims, the discovery of the bodies was not the end of their nightmare. It was the beginning of a longer, more agonizing struggle. Every year that passed without an arrest forced them to live in limbo. Their daughters, sisters, and mothers were gone, but the person responsible remained free. Justice was promised, but never delivered. At the center of this fight was Mari Gilbert, the mother of Shannon. Mari refused to let her daughter or the other women be forgotten. She became the loudest, fiercest voice, confronting police and speaking directly to the media. Mari held press conferences in front of police headquarters, sometimes standing in the cold for hours, holding posters of Shannon's face. She accused detectives of negligence, even cover-ups, calling them out by name. To some, she was a grieving mother. To others, she was a relentless warrior. "They can try to ignore us," she told reporters once, "but we'll be here every day." Shannon mattered. All of them mattered. Other families found their voices too. Melissa Barthelomy's family endured months of cruel prank calls where a taunting voice claimed to be connected to her disappearance. Megan Waterman's mother, Lorraine, carried her daughter's photo to every vigil, her quiet persistence a reminder that Megan would not be erased. Amber Costello's loved ones demanded her life be treated with dignity, furious that her struggles with addiction had once led authorities to dismiss her case. Together, these families became advocates. They appeared on national talk shows, spoke at candlelight vigils, and gave interviews where their grief was plain for the world to see. But their fight was not only personal, it was political. Many of the victims were sex workers, and families believed this was why police were slower to act. Journalists began using the phrase, "the forgotten women of Long Island." It was a painful truth. Only when multiple bodies were found together did the world finally begin to pay attention. Through the 2010s, year after year, the families organized vigils along Gilgo Beach. Sometimes the crowds were small, sometimes dozens gathered when headlines resurfaced. But in rain, wind, or snow, the families stood with candles, holding photographs of their loved ones. Their persistence kept the Gilgo Beach murders alive in the national consciousness. Without them, the case might have quietly faded into silence. For more than a decade, the investigation seemed frozen in time. Suspects came and went. Promising leads fizzled out. Families grew tired of hearing empty promises from officials. And then, in early 2023, everything changed. The name of the new prime suspect shocked nearly everyone. Rex Heuermann, 59 years old, a husband, a father of 2. A Manhattan architect who commuted each day from his home in Massapequa Park, a quiet Long Island suburb. To the outside world, he was ordinary. At work, he managed projects for high-profile clients, wearing suits and carrying himself with authority. But his house told a different story, neglected, with weeds creeping up and windows boarded shut. To neighbors, he was simply the strange guy down the block. No one imagined he might be hiding a horrifying secret. Investigators had quietly reopened old evidence, this time with advanced technology and renewed determination. Cell phone data. Burner phones used to contact victims often pinged cell towers near Heuermann's home and office. DNA evidence. Detectives retrieved a discarded pizza box outside his Manhattan office. On the crust, they found DNA that matched hair discovered on one of the victims. Vehicle link. Witnesses in 2010 described a dark Chevrolet Avalanche. Records confirmed that Heuermann owned one at the time. Piece by piece, the puzzle began to form. On the morning of July 13th, 2023, detectives made their move. In the heart of Manhattan, just steps away from the bustling Fifth Avenue, plainclothes officers closed in. The tall, heavy-set man in a business suit was handcuffed on the sidewalk and led away in front of stunned bystanders. Within minutes, the news broke. Breaking news: arrest made in Gilgo Beach murders. Helicopters circled Massapequa Park. Police swarmed the small, cluttered house. Neighbors gathered outside, shocked. "He seems so normal," one said. Another admitted, "We always thought he was odd but harmless." Never. This, at his first court appearance, prosecutors announced charges in the murders of Melissa Barthélemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, 3 of the Gilgo Four. The evidence was described as overwhelming: DNA, phone records, vehicle records. Heuermann sat stone-faced, glasses perched on his nose, and pleaded not guilty. After Rex Heuermann's arrest, investigators descended on his home, office, and storage units. What they uncovered painted a disturbing portrait of a man living a double life. For days, detectives combed through the small, shabby house on First Avenue. The property stood in eerie contrast to the man's professional image: boarded windows, overgrown weeds, a sense of decay that unsettled neighbors for years. Inside, investigators discovered a chaotic hoard of evidence. Boxes of old documents and files stacked high. Hundreds of weapons, some legally owned, others not. And most chilling of all, bags of women's hair stored in plastic. Prosecutors later said the DNA evidence tied to these bags was consistent with multiple victims. Neighbors who once dismissed the house as just creepy now looked at it as something far worse: the hidden lair of a suspected serial killer. Even more revealing was what police discovered on Heuermann's computers and hard drives. Investigators uncovered over 200 internet searches specifically about the Gilgo Beach murders, showing his obsessive monitoring of news, podcasts, and documentaries. Thousands of files containing violent pornography, focusing on domination and cruelty, acts disturbingly similar to how the victims had been bound and disposed of. It was as if Heuermann couldn't resist tracking his own shadow, replaying the story of the crimes over and over. Perhaps the most damning evidence didn't come from his home, but from a Manhattan sidewalk. Months earlier, investigators had collected a pizza box Heuermann casually discarded near his office. On a crust, they found his DNA. That DNA matched a hair recovered from one of the Gilgo Four. For prosecutors, it was the smoking gun, a near irrefutable link between Heuermann and the victims. Searches of Heuermann's storage units added even more weight to the case. Rope and burlap, resembling the bindings used on several victims. Records showing he once owned a dark Chevrolet Avalanche, the same vehicle described by witnesses connected to Amber Costello's disappearance. Piece by piece, the evidence told a chilling story. DNA on the victims, cell phone data connecting burner phones to his home and office, a vehicle linked to key disappearances, disturbing digital records of obsession and violence. To prosecutors, the conclusion was clear. This was not coincidence. It was a calculated double life. To the families, it was confirmation of their worst fears. For over a decade, the man suspected of terrorizing their loved ones had been hiding in plain sight, commuting to Manhattan each morning while leaving behind a trail of horror along Ocean Parkway. The Suffolk County Courthouse became the stage for one of the most closely watched trials in recent American history. Reporters, family members, and curious onlookers filled every available seat. Outside, television vans lined the street, their satellite dishes pointed skyward. At the center of it all sat Rex Heuermann. Once seen as a quiet architect, he was now the accused face of one of the nation's most notorious serial murder cases. Prosecutors began with a sharp, direct message. This man is not who he pretends to be. He is a husband, a father, an architect. But behind that mask lies a killer who preyed on vulnerable women and discarded their bodies like trash. They laid out the pillars of their case. Melissa Barthelemy. DNA recovered from her remains matched to Heuermann through the discarded pizza crust. Phone records revealed that the cruel calls made to Melissa's sister Amanda came from burner phones tied to Heuermann's neighborhood. Megan Waterman. Surveillance footage placed her near a hotel the night she vanished, while cell phone data showed Heuermann's devices in the same area at the same time. Amber Costello. Witnesses described a man driving a dark Chevrolet Avalanche. Records proved Heuermann owned that exact model during her disappearance. One by one, maps, phone records, and forensic analyses were projected on a large courtroom screen. The prosecution argued it was not coincidence, but a deliberate chilling pattern. Jurors were shown cell tower maps tracking the burner phones, photos of burlap sacks identical to those used to wrap victims, charts from DNA analysts explaining genetic matches with near certainty. The courtroom was silent as prosecutors walked through each step, building a chain of evidence too strong, they argued, to ignore. But Heuermann's lawyers fought back with equal determination. They argued cell tower data was unreliable, claiming signals could bounce and mislead. DNA evidence might have been contaminated, pointing to Suffolk County Police's history of mishandling cases. The Chevrolet Avalanche was a common vehicle. Thousands of New Yorkers owned one. The defense painted Heuermann as a scapegoat, a socially awkward man with a shabby house, easy to blame for a department desperate to close a humiliating cold case. The trial's most emotional moments came from the victims' families. Amanda Barthelemy, Melissa's sister, described the horrifying late-night calls she received, mocking and taunting her after Melissa vanished. With trembling hands, she told jurors, "We lived in fear, wondering if he was still out there, watching us." Lorraine, Megan Waterman's mother, spoke through tears. She described the day Megan disappeared and the years of waiting that followed. Her words left several jurors visibly shaken. Amber Costello's relatives testified how police had once dismissed her case because of her addiction struggles. They treated her like she didn't matter, one said. Now, she finally matters. Each testimony reminded the jury that these were not just names in a case file, but women whose lives had been stolen. The prosecution also brought in experts. A forensic DNA analyst explained how even a single hair strand could conclusively link a suspect to a victim. A telecommunications engineer mapped cell tower data, showing how burner phones shadowed Heuermann's personal phone movements. A behavioral profiler described the traits of an organized, methodical killer, traits prosecutors implied matched Heuermann. Each expert reinforced the picture of a man hiding in plain sight. The defense tore into every witness. They grilled the DNA analyst, suggesting contamination was possible. They pressed the telecommunications engineer. Isn't it true thousands of people used those same towers? They dismissed the profiler's insights as junk science. Whenever emotions overtook the courtroom, defense attorneys objected, accusing prosecutors of appealing to sympathy rather than facts. The tension was palpable. Jurors leaned forward in their seats, scribbling notes furiously. Family members wept openly. Some had to leave during the most graphic evidence. Others sat defiantly, staring at Heuermann without blinking. The judge struck his gavel again and again. Order in the court. Outside, sketch artists hurried to capture every detail. Heuermann's stoic face, prosecutors pointing at charts, family members holding photographs of the dead. Those sketches appeared in newspapers the next morning. Beyond the courthouse walls, the media frenzy was relentless. Cable networks aired nightly debates. Is the DNA airtight or circumstantial? Podcasts release special episodes dissecting every witness. Online, hashtags trended, hashtag Gilgo trial, and hashtag justice for the Gilgo 4. For the public, it felt like the climax of a story that had haunted them for over a decade. For the families, it was another painful chapter, one where their loved ones' lives and deaths were put under a microscope, piece by piece. The trial of Rex Heuermann brought the Gilgo Beach murders out of the shadows and into the harsh light of the courtroom. For more than a decade, families had begged to be heard. Now, at last, their voices echoed through the halls of justice. Prosecutors laid out DNA, phone records, and chilling discoveries from Heuermann's home. The defense fought back, raising doubts, challenging procedures, and reminding the jury that one mistake could change everything. Inside the courthouse, it was more than a battle over evidence. It was a battle over truth itself. Was Rex Heuermann the monster who haunted Long Island's beaches? Or was he a convenient suspect in a case riddled with failure and delay? Even as the trial unfolded, larger questions remained. Was Heuermann responsible for all the bodies found along Ocean Parkway, or only some? Could other killers have used the same desolate stretch of marshland? And would justice ever truly match the family's loss? For the loved ones left behind, justice delayed was painful, but justice denied would be unbearable. The Gilgo Beach case stands as a haunting reminder. Monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they live next door. Do you believe the evidence against Rex Heuermann is strong enough for a conviction? Or will this trial end in more unanswered questions? Share your thoughts in the comments. Every secret waits to be revealed. Every silence that carries an echo, every story is waiting to be told. This was her secret. What about yours? What do you think about this case? Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice matters. Subscribe and step into the echoes of truth.